having done that, I'd now like just to run you quickly through the key themes of what we're looking for here today on the Better Start Cure Kids webinar. So, having your proposals needing to align with Vision Matauranga, where the board of Aotearoa and of Cure Kids are really clear that we want to be as good as we can possibly be at understanding the intersection between Māori knowledge and scientific knowledge, and the intersections where Māori knowledge is scientific knowledge, and how that can be most appropriately displayed in your application. So we want to see real clarity from you when you're particularly working with Māori and Pasifika communities about the approach you're going to take in terms of aligning with this vision. This means pay attention to Vision Matauranga and the design and methodology that you're about. Don't think of it as an add-on, but think of it as an integrated component part of getting the design and the method right in your science. Don't think we're going to be prescriptive about the way you have to do it. There's just so many ways in which this can be done really well. And there will be whole science groups which will have a mix of people with real skill in this area and a mix of people who don't know much about it. Part of the way we will be assessing what you've got available, part of the way we'll be assessing what you present to us is that we'll be looking at the strength of the team overall. That there is competency in this area, even if everybody hasn't got the single competency. You will most likely, in the subject areas that we're looking at, be working alongside whānau hako and iwi Māori. You need to be able to show that you've got relationships that you can rely on in that space, that you are competent in working in that space, you're able to co-construct where that's an important part of what you need to do, and that you have, even if you personally as the leader of this science process haven't got this particular knowledge, you know where to get it and you've got it on board with what you're doing. And clearly we want to know what will be the impact, potential and considerations of translation of the research, what you might find and how that might be really significant for the population of New Zealand, of Aotearoa. So one of the things about thinking about Vision Matauranga is, what does it look like in the Pasifika space around this stuff? Well, the Health Research Council guidelines are a really good guide to helping with this process, but consider it as simple as this. If you think about worldviews as important, then worldviews of the Pasifika communities are just as important as the worldviews of iwi Māori, and that you've got to have the same kind of competence to be able to get behind the knowledge structures that exist within those worldviews to be successful in the science with those communities. So we'll be looking for signals and signs in your RFP that show you've got that competence, that insight, and the people capable of doing it. So I think the final one, we just leave you with the view is that how you actually might be able to get access to more of the information around that. And it's, if you go through Better Start at curekids.org.nz, then you will find all the paperwork that supports the kind of conversation we're going to have today. So I wish you every best in putting in your application. We want you to succeed. And so today's conversation is really to give you a leg up in anything you feel you need to know in order to make this a drop-dead successful proposal. Kia ora koutou, and what we'll do now is we'll open the process up for questions via the chat box.
And Pat, just before you do that, would you mind just talking to the guidance document that's been developed? Because I'm just conscious that this has been circulated to just the principal investigators, and it was only done as recently as yesterday. I'm just conscious that some of the participants here today may be co-investigators or associated researchers or even research office staff that may not be aware that this even exists. So would you mind just talking to that as a standalone guide?
Yeah, so what we've got here in effect is a way through understanding how Vision Matauranga might be applied in your circumstance. We've got links to the kind of quality discussion that need to be understood in order for you to get feel you can be confident in responding to the kind of questions and challenges it poses. We've got the ability to say quite directly how the Vision Matauranga relates to the national science challenges, how important it is for what we're doing, and how important the government feels for what we're doing in funding this research. It gives you detailed guidance on how you might give consideration to Vision Matauranga in your proposal. So it takes you through the kind of areas of importance that you would need to apply in this circumstance, and it gives you signs and signals about how you might align your project with the requirements of Vision Matauranga. So this document here, the Guidance and Pasifika Focus document, is a very important piece that enables you to get access to the technical support you need for the thing that you want to apply for. Right, so we're going to open this up for questions now, and we're going to allocate the question to whoever. So Ruth Napper, thanks very much. I'm planning a literacy intervention, which is a pilot study of the FASD subjects. This intervention will be tailored to individual needs and thus how much detail of methodology do you want in this application? Perhaps I'll pitch that to Gail Gillen.
Oh, kia ora, Ruth. Nice to see your name pop up there. Yes, if you're looking at a single case study design, it would still be important to identify what sort of measures you'll be using to evaluate change, what sorts of, if you're involving questionnaires or if you're involving parent interviews, thinking about how you will engage whānau or families in those questionnaires and interviews. So even though it might be just a few children you're looking at in a more case study approach, it would still be interested to know the types of measures and how you're thinking about those from a Māori and a Pasifika lens around interviewing, case study design, types of measures, and also the impact of your research for those communities.
Ruth, feel free to follow up with an additional question if you choose to do so. Yeah. We're having another question come in from Leith at this moment. No, it hasn't appeared just yet. Ruth, did you find that satisfactory for what you needed to know?
In terms of the template will have space requirements as well. So in terms of how much detail, it will be somewhat limited in terms of the actual application form in terms of length. But in terms of aspects relevant to Vision Matauranga, it isn't trying to, as Pat said in the introduction, trying to integrate that through into the design of your study.
Right. Well, we're just pausing for a moment to get a response from Ruth there, but also Leith is typing in, so we'll just take them in whatever order they come up. Leith, will the people assessing Vision Matauranga read the entire application or just the one-page section? I'm wondering whether we need to repeat information about the design, etc., or whether we can focus on unique cultural aspects. Garrick or Tim, would you like to have a go at that?
Just from a process perspective, the specialist VM assessors will be receiving the whole proposal. So we think it's really important that the assessment is made in the context of research design methodology, the objectives, the pathway to translation and impact. So all aspects of the proposal, clearly the experience of the team, will be set out in sections outside of the Vision Matauranga. But as you point out there, Lee, the opportunity within that section is to really emphasise the intentional approach you've taken to Vision Matauranga, and you can highlight those approaches there. So just know that there's going to be the context that the specialist VM assessors will be looking at there.
Garrick, do you want to comment to that at all?
Yeah, I'd just add to that. Yes, so we'd expect to see some highlighting of how you might intend, or how you intend to address Vision Matauranga. But in addition to that, we'd expect to see that through the methodology and design. So it's not just something that you mention up front, but it actually appears right throughout the whole design of the project.
Right, good. Right.
Sorry, with regards, just with regards to people assessing, did we respond to that part of the question?
Yes, I think that we did so. But if you want to go back to that assessment part of the question, Tim, do you want to do that?
It's important that all members will read all details, so we won't just have a separate, the Vision Mato role won't be assessed in isolation. Anyone who's there to give expertise on Vision Matauranga will be reading the whole application, so you don't need to worry about repeating information on the VM section, because they'll have access to that in other parts of the application.
Yeah.
And Erica, with only one page of VM and Pasifika, some of the justifications may be dealt in the other sections. So as long as the team reads the whole application, I think that's the answer is yes, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And you can feel free within the specified VM section to reference those aspects of the proposal that are directly relevant, because the VM section will be a priority reference point for those assessors. So feel free to make that direct reference to other sections of the proposal where it's elaborated on further.
And I see Ruth has responded to suggesting that she's happy with the answer, really, that will be pre and post intervention measures and caregiver interviews, in that process. Well done. Okay, so let's take a new question from the floor.
Just in regard, Ruth, while we're waiting for the next question, to your comment there, yes, even though you might not have Māori participants, given that you're in a very specialised area of participants, it's still looking for the relevance of the outcomes of your work for Māori. So even though your particular participants in this study in your region might not be Māori, obviously there'll be other Māori who this work will be of relevance to. So that's an important aspect to think about.
Sure.
Ruth's got a
that's it. So take your time. We've got plenty of time. So, and don't worry about the pauses. There are at least two people framing up questions as we speak. Jordan Whitey. Can I ask a methods question that is not VM related? Sure. Yeah, go for it. Absolutely. You've got us in suspense, Jordan.
Oh, Erica's the answer question.
Here's a great question, Erica. What would be an unsatisfactory VM section? Well, not knowing a clue about what you were talking about would be fairly unsatisfactory, I think.
A non-existent one?
Well, would you like to comment on what would be unsatisfactory for Pasifika response in this area?
Yeah, thanks, Pat. I really agree with what's been said. Like, the gold standard really is not just having like certain parts for Pacific in terms of the methodology, but infused throughout the whole document. That really is the gold standard, and because it's going to be assessed in a holistic way, you know, we should be able to see both.
Okay, cool.
So unsatisfactory would mean you're not mentioning Pasifika or Māori, or not considering how Pasifika or Māori may be involved in the study, or the relevance of the outcome of the study for Pasifika or Māori, or you may not have considered Māori or Pasifika particular views or positioning on some of the aspects of your study, not addressing any of the principles of the VM strategy. That would be an unsuccessful bid.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that extends into our experience of this has been, it's quite obvious sometimes when the section is a bolt-on or an afterthought, or it's seen that the applicant is trying to score well in this one section to meet some kind of threshold, whereas in line with all the comments so far, we're looking for that holistic integration of a genuine commitment to Vision Matauranga.
Okay, now Jordan has another question. How can I figure out the power factor? I've never come across such a term in my research. It's related to the sample size, yes. Gareth, do you want to comment on that?
I share Jordan's view. I'm not sure I've come across that either. I'm just reading through.
Yeah, I can talk to this one. So when it's talking about the power factor, it's looking at the effect size or the sample size that you might need to have in order for your research to be replicated. So it's really research methodology when you're looking at group sizes, or particularly if you're looking at large group sizes. So depends on the type of study you're designing. If it's more of a case study or a qualitative study, it won't be so relevant. So if you're looking at group studies where you might be comparing two groups on different measures, then the power of the difference that you find between those groups, say if one group was getting an intervention and one group was not, is relevant in terms of the likely impact of your findings or the importance and significance of your findings. So that's where it's really only of relevance if you're doing that type of comparative study where you need to have a sufficiently large group to be able to show that if there is an effect of an intervention, that you have confidence in that effect being a genuine one related to your intervention and not just an artifact of something else that might be happening. So the actual method of looking at that, you'll find that, we can send you the way you calculate power. It's often based on previous research that might have looked at something different that's shown large effect sizes, and you estimate the size of the group you'll need to have a reasonable effect size based on previous research findings and the mean difference between groups from other studies. But it may or may not be relevant to the type of work you're doing. If you feel it is relevant, then we can certainly help you with that statistical method. I'm not a statistician, but we can certainly put you in touch with people who are, that can support you in the type of analysis you would have to do to calculate the power size or the effect size.
Cool. Thank you for that, Gail. Savanti Wild is two questions there. Does VM need to address both Māori and Pacific, or is one of the other either sufficient? Or perhaps the proposal may focus on Māori but may have application to Pasifika. Monique, back to you on that one.
Yeah, thanks. I think that it needs to include both Māori and Pacific in every single proposal, but that if you had a focus on Māori and how it would apply to Pacific, that would be fine.
Oh, okay.
Can I make another comment, Pat?
Yeah, of course.
Just like in general, science excellence is the prioritisation, but there's just a really fantastic opportunity to raise the bar of science excellence globally by having a focus with Māori and Pacific as well. So it's, just an opportunity to raise the bar of science excellence here, which is, it's really exciting, and that's why we're having this webinar.
Yeah.
It is really exciting. Yeah, just to add to that, Monique, that's a great comment, because it is really exciting. I mean, I travel quite a lot in the area of education, and sometimes we take for granted the effort and work we put in ensuring our research is relevant for our communities. And so therefore we really do stand out, particularly in education, for our excellence in research, considering other worldviews. So this gives us a chance to move that more in health as well, to really make that step up. And so it will certainly add to the interest of the research that we are conducting within this challenge internationally.
Garrick, I wouldn't mind you just commenting on that question really about the high level of relevance of the Māori and the Pacific stuff here. We may have lost Garrick.
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't hear the Garrick part. I'm here.
No, I'm asking you, Garrick, to comment on the high relevance of the Māori and Pacific stuff in regard to this new research that we're looking for.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been speaking about with the governance group and trying to push our thinking along is that science is not complete. It hasn't resolved everything. And here's an opportunity to engage with Māori and Pasifika knowledge to stretch science. So I would like to see personally aspects of the proposals which might be quite different and innovative in the sense that other scientists may not have done that before, or other Māori or Pasifika researchers may not have done that before, but that you think that it might actually address some of the pressing issues within our communities. So this is an opportunity then to stretch the science, and like Monique and Gail have said, is to lift the bar for science. It's not a completed project.
Thanks very much, Garrick. But also Tim from Cure Kids. You're looking for some really important stuff to come out of this, aren't you?
Well, I think that's the unique thing about this funding call, is that it's intentionally positioned as not one to support business as usual research. So this is designed to be clearly at the mission-led, translational community impact side of things. And Garrick's talked there about innovation. Yes, we want fantastic science, but what we agree with the National Science Challenge on is that you cannot address these thematic challenges that are prioritised within this call without also acknowledging the importance of trying to enhance impact and enhance the outcomes of these studies by genuinely engaging with Vision Matauranga and the Pacific knowledge as part of this process. So yeah, I think more than any other funding call that Cure Kids has put out there, and for all the right reasons, we definitely agree with this approach of really challenging the research community to think a little bit different about how this might be able to be positioned within their research.
And can I say, as chair of Te Puerea, how this kind of connection with Cure Kids and this kind of shared view about what we're trying to do here, and to have really mainstream organisations talking in this way about examining the very kind of most expansionist view we can think about in terms of Vision Matauranga and for Pasifika Focus. This is the opportunity to pull us off in this space. And we're really encouraging of the science community to actually treat it as this kind of opportunity and to stretch themselves. So we're very conscious of the need for carrying on with the questions. So there's a bit of a break here at the moment. If anybody else has got additional questions they'd like to make. Okay, so we've got one there. We're going to just so let's if you can screen down just a bit, if you don't mind. A long question, so we just have to get to it. Ruth Napper. Right, so there's a lot, if you go back one line. Normally one would have pilot data to do power analysis, as this is a more small cohort case study that will produce pilot data, which is the first data to be generated in a New Zealand context. I am, however, looking at roughly similar studies with a statistician to get an estimate of this. I'm hoping this will do for power analysis purposes, I presume. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Ruth, that would be yes. As I say, the power analysis is dependent upon the types of studies, but looking for other types of small group research case studies that you're undertaking to do that analysis would be very appropriate. If it's small case study, the power analysis may not be as important for the type of work you're doing, but I think you're on the right path talking to a statistician about the estimate from other groups.
Cool. There's just a small pause here at the moment while we wait for the next question.
I might just make another comment as you're thinking about the Vision Matauranga and Pasifika relevance. That, of course, if you are successful, don't forget you become part of the larger Better Start community as well. So it's not like you're funded for a study and then you're just left alone. We've got the director to support you. We have our Kāhui and our Pasifika advisory groups to support you as you go through the research if you should be successful. So there's a wider community of support that might be different from other types of funding once you become part of this area, because all of the projects need to meet our KPIs as a Better Start challenge. So obviously we're supporting you through your research if once successful to help us achieve those goals together.
Okay. Leith has a question about the referees. Who would be appropriate to list in the section of the application? Should they be the people who already know about a study or just experts in our area? Would you like to take that on, Garrick?
I would suggest it would be people that know your work, that are familiar with your work, both your past research projects and those people that are familiar with the work of researchers within your team. Also, any referees who might be able to speak to your past collaborations with, if this is going to involve a group of researchers, where you have collaborated with other researchers and that you propose to collaborate within this research project, referees that know about how you've worked together in the past. That would be great as well.
Okay, Tim, your thoughts on the question of referees?
Yeah, no doubt. I don't got anything to add to Garrick's comments. Is just the conflicts of interest and putting your own consideration to that. It quite often happens that we have applicant nominated referees who know their work well, and then when we approach the referee, they will declare a conflict of interest because they've advised on this proposal or the same proposal that's been submitted to another, or a similar proposal that's been submitted to another funding organisation. So that's the only additional consideration I'd throw in there.
Monique, have you got a comment on that issue of referees?
Yes, just what was mentioned about conflict of interest with Māori and Pacific in our circles, which has been mentioned. Sometimes, you know, that there's not enough people to go around who have capacity and capability to be able to support these things. So if the issue is around a Māori or Pacific person being a referee in terms of conflict of interest, I think I would just use them anyway and declare that conflict. It's better to than to not.
Okay, and Gail, your thoughts on that?
Yes, I'm just wondering, I was just trying to have a look for some detail. Sometimes people will submit letters of support from Māori or Pasifika communities that if they're going to be working within a particular community, that they have got a letter of support to indicate to the panel that yes, they're very supportive of the project happening within their community. So it's not necessarily a referee, but it's just someone to indicate that there is that support readily available, rather than an applicant just saying, yes, I'm going to be working in this Māori community, but we might not know that that community are willing or supportive of the research that you're planning to undertake within their community. So that's probably an addition to referees. But yeah, strong referees that we have confidence that they can make a good evaluation of your work is important.
Okay.
And just to build on and comment on Monique's comment there, just to be clear that all referees that are experts are independent. So if they declare a conflict of interest, they won't be providing part of the formal peer review that is by design and by robust assessment independent. So, and I think the way we manage that is, yes, we have applicant nominated referees, but they will potentially just be a small component of the wider, completely independent experts that provide referee reports, which Cure Kids is the lead administrator, sourcing internationally as well. So that's putting aside and distinct between the expert assessment panel and the referees.
Okay. Ruth Napper's got a terrific question. If we're not successful, is there an avenue where we could get advice to refine our ideas towards a successful outcome? It's a terrific question. You want to talk to that, Tim?
Yeah, I think the volume of applicants, we're yet to see how many we do get in, but that's often the limiting factor in giving detailed feedback to every applicant. And I think the approach we're taking here is that if you're unsuccessful at the initial triage stage, we won't be able to provide you with detailed feedback, or every applicant with detailed feedback. However, if you progress beyond that triage phase and your proposal goes out to full international peer review, we are then in a position to be able to provide more detailed feedback. We've got a wide range of expert opinion. We can provide that feedback to you. And to the second part of your question there are a number of funding organisations, including Cure Kids, who fund child health research. And for example, we run an independent granting round each year across all aspects of child health. And there isn't a thematic area. Any of these 4 thematic areas are relevant to Cure Kids' funding remit. So if you were unsuccessful and you received some feedback of how your proposal could be improved, then there's one pathway already that you could make an application to Cure Kids. Timing might mean that can't happen this year. It might have to align with another funding round, but we're clearly just one of many funding agencies, both in New Zealand and internationally.
Okay. Good question. Hilary Stay, so you're able to say how many registrations you have?
I think we did mention that previously in another webinar, so we're happy to be open about that. And we received 101, I think was the final number for the registrations.
We would expect that some wouldn't go forward from the registration process, eh?
Yeah, there'll be some natural fall off there.
Yeah. Okay.
But we won't know that until April 3rd.
Right. Now, just to remind people that April the 3rd is the D-Day for applications to be in. Right. Garrett, you're on screen now.
Yes, kia ora, Garrett.
Kia ora.
Okay,
now, what advice would some of you old hands give to people who are doing this for the very first time? Gail.
Sorry, I'm just reading the question coming in from Michelle around school students. But sorry, what was your question?
We'll deal with the question first, but you might think about what I've just asked us later. Michelle Cole has come in. If your study design features the research method of photo voice for school students and teachers, is there any advice you can give us? Gail.
Yes, Michelle, can you describe what you mean by photo voice? You mean taking photos of students and teachers or capturing them on some sort of webcam? Assuming you might just mean taking photos of school students and teachers. That will be a question for ethics, so you'll need to discuss that with your ethical committees, your educational ethical committees. Any photo, if they're going to be in any form of publication or used for research, they would have to have parental approval, whānau approval for any use of photographic information, but it's usually something that is clearly specified within human ethics and your ethical processes around what permissions you would need for any type of information relating to participants that's of a personal nature, like audio recordings, video recordings, or photographic evidence. So I suggest in that case it would be best to talk to someone from your research ethics committee. I'm assuming of course you're at a university. I'm sorry, Michelle, I'm not sure where you're based. If you're not based at a university or you don't have access to an ethics committee, you would need to think about that.
Michelle has responded to you, Gail, saying the students are taking their own photos of the experience of connecting with a resource via we're trialing. So
yes, okay, I see. So if they're taking photos that have other children in them, then that might be an ethical issue, depending on how those photos will be used for research purposes, who has access to the photos, the other sorts of things. So if any images of children that might get taken during that photographing session, that would have to be considered. And that's the same issue if you're using a camera that is recording. You've got to think about who else is in that video image and how that data will be used.
Can I just add to that? I had a quick read of Michelle's comment. I've got a question for you, Michelle. Are you using that as a way for the students to provide narratives and stories about their connection with the resources? So it's part of your methodology, in fact. Okay.
We've lost the screen a little bit at our end. Okay, we're back again.
Yeah,
yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that's great. It's and quite radical, actually, isn't it? To actually talk to the students and that they might actually have a story about what's going on. That's great.
That's slightly droll, Gareth. Okay. So,
no, please keep any Vision Matauranga questions coming in, but we're also happy to take wider questions about the RFP, about any questions you have. Feel free to fire anything our way.
Exactly. This is a resource for you all, and use it any way you like.
We miss one? No.
No, I think we're okay. Just while we're waiting for the next question, go through the financials of this again. What's the biggest research contract we'll be awarding under this context?
So the maximum budget is $350,000, including the proportional overhead component, right? With a total of $2.8 million to be allocated. And we've had a number of questions come in just via email outside of these webinars, just asking if there's any set number of proposals that will be funded. So is that simply a mathematical equation of going 2.8 million divided by 350,000? And the answer to that is no, for a number of variables, but the most important one being that I'm sure many applicants will be proposing studies that are maybe smaller in their size and their resource requirement, which may mean that they have a lower budget limit, but it still may be fantastic science. So we won't know until we have gone through the independent assessment process as to how those priorities sit and the budget request that's represented within those priorities to then allocate out how many projects are supported from there. So the only real guidance there is that just to work within that maximum budget limit.
Sure. Okay. So let's go back to the questions as they've been presented. Lee Pugmire, you mentioned existing support for successful applicants such as the Pasifika Advisory Group, which sounds amazing. Would it be appropriate to form a separate advisory group to oversee the study, or is it better to say we will simply draw on the existing ones through a better start? We had planned to form a separate expert group to supplement ongoing consumer feedback about our intervention. Again, to you, Tim. What do you?
I would actually ask Monique or Gail to comment on that,
okay. Given
given that they would be interested in the dynamics there between internal program Better Start support and external expert advisory groups or governance groups.
So,
yes.
Gail.
Kia ora. Depending on the nature of the advice you're looking for, so the advantages of having, if you're working in a local community, well then you'll need to have some local Pasifika and Māori advisors within that community. If you're looking at higher level types of strategic advice and support, then certainly our Kahui and our Māori advisory group, but they're not there for, I suppose, the hands-on, more operational part of the work that you might be doing. So it's probably a bit of both. That if you're working in a local community, yes, you'll definitely want to have that local advice there for you.
Okay, Monique, your response to that?
Yeah, I think if there's cultural skills, knowledge and competencies that are missing, that they feel that are missing, then yes, absolutely, the Pacific Advisory Group could be accessible. But I think I would go with more local expertise. If their science is fantastic and the other advisory groups are simply set up for cultural or technical advice, there shouldn't be those gaps.
Right, good. Hilary Stace, can you tell us more about the approval process? For example, does it have to be okayed by Cabinet, the Minister in charge? No, this is okayed by the boards of both Cure Kids and A Better Start. So basically, once you get through the whole assessment process, it comes up to those boards for a tick-off. And we do it. We don't have to go anywhere else to get approval to make these decisions. Erica Hingston, in terms of additional questions following this webinar, I understand we can email at betterstart@curekids.org.nz. Will the answers be publicly available?
So this webinar is publicly available. So obviously everything that's discussed here. Any questions that come offline, just answered on a one-to-one basis. We don't publish those as Q&As. And what we've been doing in the webinars is if there are recurrent questions, common questions, we'll just mention them and make sure that everybody's aware of it. But they tend to be quite project-specific questions. But feel free to keep bombarding that email address, and we're responding to everything pretty quickly. So let us know any queries you have.
And another question in from Michelle Cole. I've not seen the guidelines, but I imagine you've outlined how you want us to demonstrate how the study will benefit both Pasifika and Māori. Do you have quite explicit advice around what you want to see and what you want the literature, how you want the literature to support this? Garrick, to you.
It has to make an impact for all communities. But what we'd like to see is a VM or Māori knowledge and being drawn upon, and not just in terms of how to access communities, but assume that the communities have knowledge, existing knowledge already, that you might then draw upon to weave in your methodology and how you produce the knowledge. Don't assume that it's just about how you engage with the community, but assume the community has existing knowledge that'll be beneficial to the project itself. But it has to address the goals of this particular challenge and the themes within the challenge.
Okay, well, right. Monique, to you also on that question.
Yeah, the Health Research Council's Pacific research guidelines are excellent. I think they give a really great way to articulate Pasifika values and how they can be practically applied in science. So, for example, if they talk about respect and reciprocity, and then they sort of give examples around meaningful engagement working alongside communities so that there's reciprocal exchange of knowledge transfer. Rather than the one way, it's a two-way street. And that is how we want Pacific research to be done, and that's the practical application of Pacific values. Again, for me, that's a minimum standard. We don't want business as usual, as Tim has said. We actually, business as usual is mediocre, and why would we accept mediocrity? We're looking for science excellence and raising the bar.
Cool. And Michelle Cole has come back again. Would it be useful for us to use appropriate frameworks like LeVar, Te Whare Tapawa to build our case? Clearly, the science community is well aware of those and they will be valuable to you. But would that be the case, Gail?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can draw upon a number of frameworks. They would be some useful ones, but there would be other frameworks. So it's really depending on how you want to present your proposal, but putting it within a framework is always helpful, I think.
And Michelle, you mentioned that you haven't seen the guidelines and you wondered how explicit or otherwise they are about our expectations. I think it's been positioned as saying we expect that you've considered all of these points, and rather than giving an expectation or a tick box of how we want to see things portrayed or considered and presented, we want to see you represent back and reflect to the assessment panel what approach you're going to take under each of these priority areas. So it is again a framework for consideration rather than saying we expect to see this, that, or the other.
Just to add to that, I think it'd be great if you use Leval or Whare Tapawhao or the other ones that Gail refers to. But I'd also like to see that operationalised and come through in the methodology and how you're proposing to do that work. A lot of these frameworks which exist are really at the sort of high level in terms of these are the sets of ideals and ideas. Many of them actually haven't been operationalised. So I'd be looking to see that, how it plays out in your project.
Sure, excellent. How are we going? I think we're probably coming pretty close to the end of this. So let's take any remaining questions. Anything that's burning, we're very happy to answer it just as we've done the others. This has been a very interesting little exchange, even though those of you who have been listening have been typing your stuff in. I think you've got a really clearly articulated sense of purpose about what we're trying to do here. This is definitely not business as usual. And we want to see people who are prepared to be innovative, to be culturally literate about the way they wish to go about their science. And we would welcome people with innovation and cultural literacy and excellent science to be right at the top of the queue of what we're trying to achieve here. So I think what we'll do now is call this to a close, as there doesn't appear to be any more questions. I want to thank you all for your contributions, and I would like to bring this to a close. Thank you to the presenters who have connected with the audience, and thank you to those who've helped set this up. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou katoa. Thank you very much, and ka kite anō.
Kia ora, everyone.
Oh, there's a line.